Oh, we are live. We're so out of date. We're so bad now.
Damn, glad I wasn't picking my nose or anything. Or back talking killer.
Well, I guess what we can start with is welcome back to LaraChat Live. It has been, what has it been, guys? Has it been a month, possibly 2 months since our last show?
It's been a couple weeks before the conference. So yeah, it's been a while.
It had. We took a bit of a break before because of the conference and leading up to it, and then we thought, hey, why don't we have a live show during the conference? That didn't happen. And then, once we got back, it was like, holy crap, I just got slammed. I know Eric got slammed as well. Alfred, how about you? Did you just get slammed with work when you got back?
It's it's always like that lately, it seems. So
I do have to ask, I know this goes to podcast, but of our 1 or 2 viewers who ever watch it online, what's that above your head? It looks like you're like
it's like a disco ball.
It's cool. We got the reflection in there. It's a little artsy thing going on.
It's a snow. It's one of those blue. It's the mic. So
okay, that's kind of like the one I have here, but okay. Yeah. Now I know what that is. I thought you were like at a hair care shop where they put that big thing on your head, getting a perm or something.
Yeah. No comment.
Today's show is really kind of about tools, not so much Eric himself, but the tools we use in our job. I know we've had this conversation before on one of our past shows, but it's always fun to talk about the cool things that we use and find daily. And I thought it'd be a nice little introduction back to the world of video/podcasting, because it has been a while. We are so out of practice. We are so unprofessional, so everything. So let's take it easy. We'll have a nice gentle ride through all of this and see what we can share in terms of tool-like knowledge. I know Eric's got a brain full of it.
Okay, Sean, you got to help me out. I've got a mental bet going on. What episode are we on?
This is 30, episode 30. You're right. Oh my God. This is a milestone episode. We come back. It's episode 30. I hit the start podcast button. I look over at Slack and I get distracted, and we're playing. Like, guys, we're pros.
We're streaming. So for the podcast listeners, the one not watching the stream, we've got a different panel today. It's myself, Eric, Sean, who you've been listening to ramble on, and then we got Alfred returning back from beyond. What's up, buddy?
Hey, yeah, it's good to be back. It's good to start chatting again.
Before we get into our topic of just kind of tools that we use, I can't even begin to explain to you how fantastic it was to meet you guys in person in New York.
Yeah, that was fun.
Yeah, it was surreal, to be honest with you. It was. We've talked for so long, and I don't know why it just never occurred to me that one day we would actually meet, but to have all of us, I mean, and we had all of us there, right? It was you, Matt was there. We had Jimmy was there, right? That's his name, Jimmy. Man, we had just everybody was there. It was such a good time, man. And I finally got to have some drinks with Sean, and you're right, Alf. He's a sloppy drunk.
Nice.
Eric, come on. What stays in New York stays in New York. You get there.
So the coolest thing was the very first day we were there, when the conference started. If you were at the conference, the lobby was this real long lobby, and they weren't letting people in to sit down. So it was just like at the beginning of the conference, it was just filling up with people. And I'm standing there, and we're closer to the back of the lobby, and I'm standing there with my business partner John, and he's like, "Hey, are your LaraChat friends here yet?" I'm like, "I don't see him." And he's like, "Would you be able to see him?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, I would see." And as soon as I said it, here comes Sean around the corner. It's just like Sean's head and my head, like bobbing above all these other heads. So I'm like, "Yeah, he just came in. I see him."
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we should, for any new listeners, if we ever get them, probably not. But for any new listeners, I'm 6'7". Eric, you're 6'5",
Yeah,
6'4".
about 6'5", yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we walk. It's like when eyes meet across a room. We made eye contact, and we knew the connection was there. We had to go through the crowd, and
Yeah.
they parted. They literally parted because we're big guys. Who's gonna like? They're gonna move for us. The room parted, and we shook hands, and I don't know if we did a hug, but
The hug went on a little bit longer than comfortable for, I think, a lot of people in public, but I was okay with it.
yeah. And then of course we finally get to go sit down, and I mean, so the first choice in our seating, I mean, we were a little bit behind in getting in, but the first choice in seating was kind of uncomfortable for me. How about you, Eric?
You guys,
It was horrible. It was
feel
horrible.
bad. I barely fit in those seats, and I'm 5'6". Oh my gosh,
Yeah, it was tight.
Those seats were made like 200 years ago for smaller people or something. I don't know.
Yeah, that was probably one of my bigger complaints about the conference. Is like, that was tough to sit in those seats for 8 hours. And I mean, even again, myself and Sean, I mean, Sean is just taller. I'm taller and whiter than the average human being. So sitting in those seats for 8 hours was just, by the end of the day, I'm like, all right, I'm ready for this to be done.
Yeah.
Well, but it was
good.
It was just so good seeing faces. And this year, I had so many people just walk up to me, and it was funny. It's like, as soon as they walked up to me, I recognized them from Twitter. If you're a Twitter person, if you tweet, make sure you put a picture of yourself on your profile, because if you do, it just triggers. Like, as soon as you walk up to somebody and they say, "Hey, I follow you on Twitter," it's so much easier to make that connection. It's like, "Oh yeah. I know your avatar. I've seen you."
Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah, that I see my avatar is some cartoon drawing that I really like, and then
no, it's very realistic though. It looks very much like you.
But that's the thing is, like I was saying to you, man, I hope people come up and talk to us, and they're like, oh yeah, they all came up and talked to me. I was like, oh, that's awesome. But I go to the conference, and, a few people came up, and I was like, man, that Eric, he probably hogged them all. But in reality, it's probably because my face isn't out there on Twitter, and nobody watches this show, so nobody knows who I am. Just a name in the crowd.
Give it time.
I just ramble more than most people, even on Twitter. I've cut back a lot on my tweeting. I know it hasn't been a conscious effort. I've been so busy. There hasn't been a lot to tweet about because I just have been buried with work lately and haven't been experiencing life so much. So there's not a whole lot to tweet about. And when I do tweet, I seem to be a little disruptive. So.
Yeah, I want to get back into that in a second. But one of the things, going back to the seating, excellent choice in moving us all to the front for us tall guys. I thought it was fantastic. So at the next LaraCon or Wade PHP or whatever, you and I, Eric, Alfred, you're welcome to come along. You can sit in one of the seats and swing your legs like you're. But Eric and I reserve the right to the seats that have the most leg room. So if you're a 5'6" guy in our space, we're kicking you out. We have that right.
He plays hockey, so you don't want to piss him off.
Well, yeah. But yeah, the controversy, we're gonna kind of talk. Let's talk. I know you've talked about it on PHP Ugly. Let's talk about it just a little bit. Indulge us, if you will.
Sure. You sure you want to tarnish the reputation of the show? We can talk about it.
Well, we tarnished the reputation when we decided to have you as a regular. I mean,
this is true. This is true. I'll do the same thing I did with PHP Ugly. I will prefix it, and I shared with you guys more on a personal level when I was there. I wasn't in the best mental state going to the conference. It was very debatable whether I was even going. Going through some personal stuff. I lost my father actually a few days before the conference. So, I was already kind of, not fully committed to being there, but I did feel that was important to go. And I really, a lot of the reasons I wanted to go were really selfish. I wanted to see you guys. You know, I LaraCon has historically been one of my favorite conferences. I love the single track, although they did change that up a little bit this year. But the thing that Sean is talking about is on PHP Ugly, I had mentioned the fact that I sat through all those talks and I felt a little like I just didn't feel like there was enough acknowledgement of the efforts that the community, people in the community were making for Laravel. It's specifically, I was thinking about this show and the things you guys do just to continue to promote Laravel. I was thinking about Laravel Collective, Laravel News, every user group organizer who was sitting at that conference who puts together a monthly user group meeting for Laravel. You know, I was thinking about there's all these, there's such a fantastic community around Laravel, and there's so much that community, the community is so active, and I just didn't see a lot of acknowledgement of that community at the conference, and I was a little disappointed. I kind of expressed my disappointment in that, and Taylor actually had reached out to me after he had heard PHP Ugly, and we had a little bit of a conversation through Twitter, and essentially what it boiled down to is I told him, because you know his big question is, what were you looking for? What were you expecting? And I'm like, I wasn't expecting a lot. I mean, you'd done it all the previous conferences where you just casually mentioned these groups. You'd mentioned LaraChat Slack. You'd mentioned the Laravel Collective. And it wasn't this big presentation. It was a 5-minute, or not even a 5-minute, maybe a 1-minute just mention of, hey, this is this group. This is what they do for the community. Appreciate their efforts. Everybody go out and show them some support and show them some love. And that's really all it was. And that's kind of where we had left our discussion off at. So I don't know if that got through to him at all. He didn't really acknowledge it. Just kind of said, okay, I'll take everything you said in consideration, which, you know, I had appreciated the response. So, but yeah, that's just kind of that. And of course that sparked a little bit more of a Twitter thing of, you know, people kind of saying that I think the impression was that I had said that Taylor doesn't do enough or doesn't work hard or something along that lines. And that was by no means what I was saying at all. So yeah, that was that. I actually feel good about it. I was very kind of on the fence, and I had reached out to people that I trust, and I had them listen to it before I released it and said, hey, you know, what is your opinion? Do I overstep a boundary here? I got a lot of good feedback. Those are people I considered friends. So I felt everything they said was, you know, very constructive. So I felt comfortable enough releasing it. And then the feedback I started getting on Twitter after I had released it, I felt a lot better about what I had said. Like because I wasn't trying to overstep boundaries. I wasn't trying to troll anybody. I wasn't trying to be, you know, controversial. It was just an opinion I had about it. It was an observation I had about the conference, and I just made it known.
Yeah, I think one of the things, like, you know, I had a point and I lost it, of course. We're coming back to getting into the vibe here. Don't blame me. But basically, I think you're right in terms of I'd love to see acknowledgement, not so much for like LaraChat Slack. Having that, like, there was with Joe Ferguson, I think it was, did a talk on the PHP Laravel community, and I saw a picture of his slide, and there was our logo up there, and it was like, oh my god, that's so awesome. But that makes you feel good as somebody who puts in this time. But I think you're right. Like, Alfred wrote a book about Laravel. Matt has the Laravel Collective. I mean, the list goes on of people that make this community great. And there's no way that I think we could list them all. I don't think Taylor can list them all. So you always run the risk of pissing someone off.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Do you do it or do you not? I don't know. I mean, I think
in a general way, I mean, you're right. If he didn't list off X, Y, and Z, but he said 20 other people, yeah, you're right. But was there any sense of community appreciation at all?
Right, and I think that was my point. Is I didn't feel like there was any. I didn't feel like anything. That, and then and again, to his defense, Taylor stated, "No, I totally did think the community." I'm like, oh, "Okay, I didn't hear you say it. I mean, if you say you said it, I'm not going to challenge you on that. I didn't hear it." So.
And one other thing I wanted to really hate to, I don't want to beat the dead horse, so let's focus on moving on. But I think in some ways, rightfully so, the community is sensitive to attacks on the framework or Taylor himself, because there is all the other attacks, somewhat personal, somewhat about the technology, etc. So I think there's a lot of sensitivity there. So I can respect people getting up in arms and defensive. I don't know whether there needs to be less sensitivity or not, because they are attacked, that group is attacked so much from the outside.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't, yeah. I don't think we need to overanalyze it too much, but
yeah.
It'll be. It's funny though, if you remember one of the original not one of the original formats, when I started getting involved with the podcast here, one of the formats I had pitched to you was doing every month doing an interview with a community organizer, a Laravel community organizer. And that was actually one of the first things we tried to do, is we started reaching out to community organizers to see if they could be on the show, just to kind of foster that, hey, we appreciate what you're doing. We want to help give you a voice and encourage you to kind of keep going down this road. And then that kind of led into interviewing people within the Laravel community who were, making significant contributions, which I thought was good. But if you guys aren't aware, the Laravel podcast, the official Laravel podcast, the one that was Jeffrey Way, Taylor, and Matt, they have now changed their format. So it's no longer the three of them. It's now going to be Matt kind of doing that same thing. Matt's they've switched their format over to an interview show, and the idea being interviewing people within the Laravel community who essentially what we were doing, trying to find people in the Laravel community who were doing cool things, working on cool projects, and doing interviews with them. I'm sure Matt will have a little bit more success. He seems to be a bigger name in this community than we were. We're sitting out there tweeting people, and they're like, "Who are you? Leave me alone! Stop stalking me."
So, if they're taking and I'm doing air quotes for the podcast people, if they're taking our idea, I have a pitchfork right here, reaching for it. Should I leave it? I like Matt. Matt's a good guy. I mean,
it was nice of him to walk up and talk to us. He talked to us at the conference. He said he would even be on the show if we asked him. We should probably take him up on that offer.
Yeah, we should. We should.
Yeah.
All right, let's call him right now. Anybody got his home number?
You know what? Telegram. Somebody.
All right. Well, all right. Let's get off this. It was a great conference. Yeah. I'm looking forward to next year. Hopefully, I can go. I do want to talk a little bit about your conference, Eric. Can we do that?
Absolutely, we can do that. Yes, I would love to do that.
Oh, look at this guy. He's beaming. All right. So next September, about this time next September.
Actually, it was a year ago on the 19th, or a year from the 19th. So September 19, 2018. We're holding a conference here in sunny, beautiful San Diego. After years of begging and pleading Taylor to move the conference to San Diego, to move LaraCon to San Diego, I have finally admitted to defeat on that, and started to organize our own conference. And that's, I guess, being kind of funny and facetious. We'd actually been planning to do a community conference here in Southern California for years, even before I'd gotten involved with Laravel. Just one thing after another was happening. My business partner started a family, so months turned into years, turned into several years, and we finally got back into a position where, like, okay, do we want to do this community conference? Now, this is a community conference for PHP, so kind of a higher level conference than just the framework of Laravel. Although I'm hoping to have a lot of Laravel talks at our conference, but we saw some community conferences shutting down last year, or last year being the last year for them, and so we kind of saw an opening. Said, okay, even when there were community conferences, there was never the Southern California community conference. So we were like, okay, let's go ahead and initiate one here in San Diego. So we did it. It was so funny, like how much work goes into it, and then all of a sudden there's nothing to do. So it was like months of, working with the different hotels and, trying to figure out where we want to go and getting pricing. And then once we signed the contract and gave them, we did have to put a deposit down. So, I mean, it's a real thing. It's not just us saying we'll get a hotel. Once we put that deposit down and we did kind of some initial stuff, like got the website up, we're putting together some sponsor packages, but the reality of it is it's still a year away. It's like nobody's going to buy tickets for this conference for a few months. So now it's kind of like this nervousness of, okay, well, we'll put it out there, but I hope people are, get interested. So yeah, we put together sponsor packages. This week, we'll probably start emailing some potential sponsors over the next couple of weeks. And then we're planning on call for papers January, February. Figured that'd give us a couple months to kind of go through that process, and should have everything announced by April, May, as far as the full, we're playing on 2 tracks. So all the speakers, keynotes, and all that. But if you're interested, if you trust that this is happening, if you just want to come to Southern California, the absolute bare minimum price that we're going to be dishing out the tickets are on sale right now. It's called a blind early bird special, which is basically you just buying the tickets, because you want to come to a PHP conference in San Diego. If you go to wavephp.com, you can go ahead and get those right now. Yep. And the hotel, I mean, like, we really wanted to make it a conference that people are going to want to bring their families. And so the hotel itself is, well, the hotel actually has a private beach. So there's a beach there that's just for the hotel. And then it's within about a half hour or half mile walk to one of the more public tourist beaches here in San Diego called Mission Beach, which has this huge wooden roller coaster. I mean, it's basically all the, like, what you would expect at a tourist sort of beach. And that's literally across the street from the hotel. It's not much of a walk at all. It's very, very easy. So we wanted to make sure that we gave people coming to the conference that beach vibe. Like, you're coming to San Diego. We want you guys to touch the sand and touch the Pacific Ocean and all that. So that was kind of important to us. So we're happy we were able to accommodate that. The hotel, even, the cool thing about the hotel is that they have rescue seals. So apparently they have a partnership with SeaWorld, which is, again, about a mile up the road from this hotel if you're interested in going to SeaWorld. But they actually house 2 of the rescue seals that SeaWorld had rescued over the years. These 2 seals happen to be blind, so they will never be released back in the wild because they wouldn't be able to survive. So they stay at the hotel, and it was just a cool thing. We walk up and I'm like, dude, there's seals here.
I actually really like the family-friendly part, because that's one thing. I went to New York. I have a young daughter, and she's at the age where she doesn't quite understand, Daddy's going away for, 3-4 days, whatever it was. She thinks, oh, Daddy's going to work. Daddy will be back in 8 hours. No, he took a few days. So she was okay at first, but then after a couple of days, it started to, it was hard. So I really like that, because I think a lot of these conferences, no offense to them, but it's very much individual or groups that work related. With this one, it'd be actually really cool if I could pack up my family. And I like what you're also saying, a mile down the road to go and into like the tourist attraction, because man, in New York, walking all over the place, like Matt told me he was at a restaurant that was on the other side of New York. He told me it would be a 15-minute walk. I'm walking with one of the guys that we chat with from time to time, Jonathan Wheat. Him and his wife are walking. We're walking down, and we get to the restaurant, and they're closed at 10 o'clock at night in New York. They're closed, and I'm like, well, we got a buddy here. And he's like, no, nobody's here at the restaurant. And then finally Matt comes stumbling out from the, I don't know, whatever room. And like, Matt, you made us walk 30 minutes down here and the restaurant's closed. So, I wish Matt was here so I could.
Maybe there's a reason he's not.
Yeah.
But hey, I like that. Everything closed, but you bring our families. Maybe we'll see some people that we haven't seen for years who have they're not going to leave their family. They could plan a family vacation around this. I like it.
Yeah, and so obviously the hotel extended a conference price for the rooms, and I have to verify, but I'm pretty sure they said that they would if you're coming to the conference and you're using that rate, if you overstay, so if you stay like through the weekend, they'll extend that rate through the weekend for you. But I need to verify that. It's not like it's a fantastic rate, but it is a little cheaper than their normal rooms are. So yeah, it's great location. Tons of things to do around here. I mean, if you do bring the family, we have Legoland. We have
Legoland. Yeah.
World famous San Diego Zoo. If you don't bring kids and it's just you and a partner or another adult or just you, there's the nightlife downtown, which is like, I don't know, like a 10-minute Uber ride to like the Gaslamp District and all the other fun, more adulty things to do. It's just, I mean, I obviously think San Diego is a fantastic place to be. So I really hope that people take the opportunity to come out and kind of appreciate it as well, because we would like to continue to do this. This first year will be kind of the gauge on whether or not we think we can do it year over year.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So we're about half an hour into our show here, and we've been talking about the main tool on the panel, but how about we talk about development tools?
Sure. Absolutely.
Right,
talk about development tools. I bet you also people always ask me when I run into them in public. I always get asked more about the tools I use for podcasting more than I do for development. I don't know why. Maybe because I'm better at podcasting than development, which is a terrifying thought because I'm horrible at this. But
well,
okay, let's start with the obvious.
Hang on, yeah, sure. Let's start with that. But you do 2 shows because you need that practice to get better, right?
I do 3 shows now, buddy.
Yeah.
3 shows. Did you not hear? I'm the official podcast for PHP Architect.
Yeah.
My condolences for that podcast.
Yeah, you got to figure they're spiraling down at this point. So,
Eric,
okay,
dragging one down at a time. Okay, I'm going to stop.
Yeah. Obvious question. Let's start with the obvious. Editor. What editor does everybody use? That's the big one.
PHP Storm.
It's a PHP Storm to me.
Yeah, it's a love-hate relationship, though. It's a bear. It's like 2 gigs of memory, slow.
I agree.
Yeah,
I use Storm, so I'm historically a Vim guy. I preach the Vim way. I use Vim and Storm, obviously, but yeah, I agree with you. I mean, once I launch Storm, it basically keeps running until it pops up. Do you guys ever get the warning message that it's used too much memory, needs to shut down?
Yeah. Once in a while. Yeah.
That's basically me. I just keep it running until that pops up and then I shut it down.
It's basically like running another operating system. It's its own thing. So
yeah.
But it's amazing. It's the reason I can explore code so easily, right? Like, what does this class do? And before long, you're in the guts of Laravel, and you're like, you really get, what that class does. And I think without Storm, I'd have trouble exploring those classes, And I know you can plug that stuff into Sublime, but I'm always like, I don't know. I don't want to take time editing my editor, So
yeah,
You
I can
know,
appreciate that.
for a while, I was using Visual Studio Code, and I thought it was really amazing.
Yep.
Same with Atom, really amazing IDE. But the whole clicking through the code thing, I could never replicate it to the level of PHP Storm.
Yeah. I really enjoy it. Like, how does this work? And you just dig in and start putting DDs everywhere. So
yeah, I mean, they're definitely above and beyond. So I'm pulling up right now. Did you guys see the Laravel News? That was the editors. Maybe it wasn't Laravel News. Somebody released a survey of PHP editors, and I think that was actually the order. I think it was PHP Storm, Sublime, and then I want to say the third one was that Visual Studio Code, and that one is just popping up everywhere I look now. It's just gaining so much traction. We actually have a developer at Diego Dev that swears by it now. He does mobile development, and he says that for JavaScript, he hasn't come across anything.
That's a good idea.
As good as this. Yeah.
Where PHP Storm, it sucks on JavaScript. It just dies a horrible death. So, like it tries to auto type all your JavaScript and everything. I have to turn off all the folders for node modules and everything. Otherwise, it just the beach ball happens. So,
I do beach ball a lot in Storm. Now that you say that,
if you right click on the node module or certain folders and exclude them, you can exclude folders from its indexing, and that helps a lot. Bower node modules, because it's trying to index everything, and you're like,
I should do that.
Yeah, it's a big help, and just turn off like all the things you don't want for plugins. But I'm going to try Visual Studio. I want to try that. I tried it for a bit, but I felt like it didn't have the PHP exploration that PHP Storm gave me, but maybe it does now.
Well, when I used it again, it could have been about a year ago, if not. But it did have some IntelliSense plugins, but they didn't go as far as PHP Storm was willing to take it.
Yeah.
But hopefully now they do, and if they do, let us know and let's chat about it. But the other thing is, that's actually a really good tip, because a lot of times, I'll do a composer install and then I have to wait a minute or two. I mean, it's a minute or two, but I have to wait for it to index before I start clicking through my classes again.
Yeah.
Do you do that? You said node modules in Bower, but do you also do it for the vendor?
I like the vendors folder. I leave that alone, right? But I want to explore. I want the indexing to work. Node modules in Bower, I don't. I rather use, I just don't treat JavaScript that way. So I exclude those by right clicking on them. It's really helpful to do that. But indexing, like you said, you got to wait a minute. I don't do on a composer install on a new app. But otherwise, maybe on when I add a new library, I don't remember it indexing much there. So I don't know. I mean, again, we have so much work to do. It's hard to mess around,
That's the key, right? That's what I tell all of our developers. They ask one of the first questions they ask is, "Well, should I go buy Storm?" I'm like, I want you to use whatever you use to be productive.
Yeah.
If it's not Storm, as long as you're productive, that's it. This is a tool meant to make your life, better. And the other aspect of it is, and this is one of the things when we get back into the community and we go to meetups, I'm always a little hesitant to preach so much about Storm, because there is a cost associated with it. It's not a huge cost, but at $100 a year or whatever the reoccurring license is now. I mean, if you don't make a living doing PHP, it's a hard justification. So I know people. So my follow-up question has always been, if you couldn't use Storm and you had, let's say, a $50 budget, what would you use?
That's a difficult one. I'm torn between Atom and Visual Studio Code.
I'm with you. You. I mean, for me, it's an easy one, right? It's always Vim. But if I wanted to go with one of these tools, those two, Atom and Visual Studio, which they're both now open source, they're both free.
Oh yeah.
Both so stinking powerful. that's the thing. It's like if you want to get into development, even if you're not making a living off it now, or even if you're not making a living off it, if you want to get into development, these tools now have gotten so ridiculously powerful. I mean, it's not front page, right? Or what was the Dreamweaver? You remember Dreamweaver, where it was like this drag and drop, and it would do the SQL stuff for you? It's not that, and that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean,
you guys ever use Coda?
Oh yeah, I actually use Coda
it's
for
90.
really,
Yeah, it's $99 though. It's not. I was just looking now. If it was 50.
What I really liked about Coda was the whole ability to, like, I could work on my code locally and publish it, FTP it to the server anytime I wanted.
But
that was actually really awesome.
But it would be insane to work that way nowadays.
No. Is that CODA, Coda?
Yeah, Coda by Panic. They make a lot of products. It's a really nice looking editor. Here's what I like about it. It works on the iPad. So you could have a full environment on the iPad, including live editing of your JavaScript if you want to edit JavaScript. It's
okay. So that's
hang on. You know how we have the iOS 11. If you're an Apple person, there's the iOS 11 update, and there's the 32-bit compatibility. I thought that app was not. I looked at it.
No, I was using it the other day, and I have the update. It worked. It's a fun idea. I'll never switch to iOS all the way for work, but it was just fun.
So let me ask you guys this next question then. How far do you think you are from ever using a browser-based editor tool? So there's a few of them out there now, and a couple of them have gotten pretty powerful.
Yeah.
So we talk about being able to code on mobile devices, or not having such a resource-intensive editor. Would you ever consider using one of these online editors?
I think no. And my reasoning right now is just muscle memory. The last 15 plus years, however long I've been coding, it's been, on a Mac, it's Command Tab. I'm on a browser window, I Command Tab to PHP Store. Do my code save, Command Tab to Chrome. But here's the thing, is that if I'm working in Chrome, and then it's just a whole different muscle memory thought to me that kind of just jars my brain to be like, well, I'm coding in the same thing that I'm viewing it in.
But I mean, there's so many Electron apps out, like Postman, and that really abstract that browser experience away from you. You don't think if like Code Anywhere came out with an Electron version of their
that's a good point.
app?
Yeah. No, that's a really good way to look at it. I used them for a little bit, but I had different reasons, and it would be interesting to see, like it would be nice to have my environment anywhere, my code anywhere. I could jump on any machine and just start working, have my test running there and everything. That would be kind of neat. But when I used their editors, it just didn't have the code. It didn't have the indexing I wanted, right? But I mean, other than muscle memory, I think it would actually be kind of cool. To have my code on there. The only fear is it's their servers, right?
That's would be one of my bigger concerns is, especially if you're working on some real proprietary stuff, it's like, okay, where is this code actually at? Who has access to this code right now? I actually feel that way about GitHub sometimes. Is think about how much proprietary code is probably out on GitHub right now. Yeah. It's like, oh man, that's
so
kind of weird.
Should I say the title of this show would be aptly called Old Men Yelling at Clouds?
No, I would switch. I was just thinking right now, what if you had your own DigitalOcean box and they had an open source web-based environment? They might be.
I think there's one out there too. Yeah.
And it'd have to be a decent editor. I'd be happy with it. I wish, honestly, I could go all Vim. I really wish I could use such a efficient IDE as Vim, if you can call it an IDE. And it's muscle memory. It's things you can keep for the rest of your life because it's not going away. How old is Vim? It's like 50 years old, or something ridiculous.
Yeah, it's so weird. So to me, Vim isn't an editor, but it's a way of using editors And I can't. I really struggle to get my head around how people even use tools like Storm without Vim binding. It's just like, how often are you reaching for your mouse? Isn't that inefficient?
Yeah.
It's just, you talk about the muscle memory. It's just muscle memory for me. You know, it's just, I'm so used to just up, down, up, down.
I'll try it again.
Isn't there a plugin that makes PHP Storm work like Vim? I know.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I couldn't imagine. That's how every editor I go, like even Atom, Sublime.
Yeah.
One of the things that tells me if I'm going to be able to use it is how good their Vim plugins are, and how true of an experience it is. Because if it's not good, I can't use it. And PHP Storm has one of the better ones out there. Not only does it have the baked-in Vim movements, but for somebody like myself who has a bunch of Vim customization, I'm actually able to do customization on my Vim for Storm. So it gives me some of my key combinations that I'm like, the big ones. There's a couple that are big for me. The biggest ones for me are when I'm in insert mode, I hit JJ to escape out instead of reaching for the escape key.
Yeah.
And when I'm in what Vim calls normal mode, I hit enter. Every time I hit enter, my file saves. Those two, if I can get those two key combinations configured, there's a good chance I will continue to use that editor. But Storm allows you to basically, anything you can do in Storm, you can create a Vim kind of key combination for.
How do you deal with file exploration? Like when you want to open a new file and you haven't opened it before, so you can't do Command E. Like how does Vim plugin handle that?
So so you're saying within a project?
Yeah, like if I'm in a page editing and I'm like, oh, let me get to this other page I haven't opened before. Is there a Vim shortcut for like just going through your file system?
So you can map the Vim shortcut. I just use the IDE shortcut. So when I'm in Storm, I got this balance between the Vim key combinations and the PHP Storm. So for PHP Storm, it's the Command key Shift O, and then you can start typing in your file name.
Right. Yeah.
So I just do that.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. No, it's I'm going to turn on Vim for PHP Storm. So
yeah, I tell you, once you get the efficiency, and I understand, I still, as long ago as it was, I still remember how I struggled learning the Vim workflow. But once you get it, the efficiency of typing, it just seems so much more natural, at least for me. It's hard for me to be fair about it because I've been doing it for so long. But yeah, I encourage you to try it.
I agree with the whole not leaving your keyboard. When I do that, I feel much more focused. When I reach for the mouse, it's when I start losing that momentum, or I don't know what to call it, but your mind switches from like up here where you're thinking you know where things are to like, let me now go point to something. You know, it's a different mindset. Yeah.
God, what about a different tool? We've been going on.
I was going to mention, have you guys heard of Text Expander before?
Yeah, for Mac.
Yeah, so I use it for all my everything, for terminal shortcuts, post PHP Storm shortcuts, writing back to people. It's a great like time saver, like whatever it is. And there's other versions of Text Expander, but this like auto text or something. But I can't recommend a tool enough because it just every day I'm shooting off, like I want to run a PHP unit test. It's PUF. And then it takes from my clipboard the class name I copied or the method I copied and puts it in there, because it takes stuff from your clipboard if you want and puts it in what you're pasting. So
I always thought that was one of the cooler things.
Yeah. So it's a great way to just make efficiencies all over the place, not just bash shortcuts, but all over.
So it seems like you have to invest a lot of time up front to get all the...
No, you're right. But every time I do something, I'm like, I'm going to do this again, shortcut. I'm going to do this again, shortcut. Right?
It has an easy way of doing. Like, if I remember correctly, can't you like just copy a bunch of stuff and say make this a shortcut?
You can do stuff like that. Yeah, I'm not that. I just do. I just open it up and drop it in there. You're right though. You could probably right click on the text, and it's really easy to make the clipboard stuff where it just has these little things to help you insert stuff. You know, I even have one for my timesheet. When I send out my timesheet every month, it just does it all the letter entry for me, including the date. I mean, it's nice. So. Yeah. So that's Text Expander. I would highly recommend that one.
I gotta go check that out now.
What do you guys use for databases? Any recommendations?
For like GUIs?
How do you guys interact with your databases?
Right. I think everybody uses SQL Pro.
I'm a big SQL fan, but again, that's a Mac. That's a Mac thing, right? You guys.
Yeah.
But do you use SQL Pro, Sean?
I use SQL Pro, and actually, now that I have the chance, I was using it and it was slowing down. I had no idea what the deal was, and I think there's like a global cache that they use it. I finally figured that out, and then now it's been snappy again, so I clear that every now and then. So I was so close to just like throwing it out the window. I'm trying different solutions. There's one called Table something, I'm forgetting. And
Table Plus?
Yeah, and that was actually kind of interesting because if you, let's say you wanted to add a record to a table, you could like add that record, start typing, and then there's up at the top there's discard, commit, and a third button, I forget. But you could commit your changes. You could like do a whole bunch of work, add a whole bunch of things, and then commit it. I think that's kind of cool, but again, it comes down to doing what you're used to, like SQL Pro or MySQL Workbench. You just add the row, hit enter, and it's there. So this, you have to do that extra step. It's kind of nice, but it's also kind of not so nice when you're like your mind is thinking, oh, I hit enter, it should be in there, and you go to the site and it's not there. It's like, what did I miss? Yeah.
So have either one of you looked at? We were talking about how fantastic PHP Storm is, which actually has a built-in database management system. Have either one of you guys looked at either that or JetBrains Data Grid?
No. Is it worth looking at?
No.
I find
that's my opinion.
Yeah, I find their user interface to be very Java-oriented. It just reminds me of those tools that always come out of their Java-based, Java-built. And they just have that clunky, made in the 1990s GT, just UI,
Yeah. So one of the things, so Eduardo, a listener and heavy LaraChat Slack contributor, had pointed out Table Plus to me as well. And I'm just realizing, and this is actually one of the bigger obstacles I have, is I have a client that has Postgres. And Postgres, if you're not aware of it, Postgres doesn't have a whole lot of tools associated to it. And I'm seeing this Table Plus apparently is compatible with Postgres.
Yeah, which, by the way, I wish was the database I always use, because it has a lot more friendly features with JSON.
Okay, so that's a tool. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about backends. Okay.
I wish I was using that more.
So is it just the JSON piece?
Well, it's a good question. Other than a lot of things that I don't know about, but it always seems to be the database that a lot of people who would know more about databases seem to like. It definitely has a lot to do with JSON, because if you want the new 5.7 JSON features from MySQL, you can't get that in Travis. So you can't run a full test suite in Travis that depends on that.
Right.
So,
but that's a matter of time.
Yeah, I was using
code, but it's already. I could have been doing it for years now at Postgres. What were you saying about CodeShip?
Oh, same thing with CodeShip. I was talking to you, Alfred, about it. Like I had to upgrade to 5.7 in the Docker script, and it was really confusing in CodeShip for me, at least, because I was updating it and then running it, but it was still MySQL version 5.6 I think they're on. So I had to change. I had to point to the correct 5.7 version if I wanted to run anything. So instead of it being a simple Docker script, run PHP Dusk or PHP Artisan Dusk or whatever, I had to do all these extra steps to make it work, and I just like threw it out the window.
Well, I wrote an article for them that shows how you can use Amazon's RDS to then use for your database, and it just wasn't ideal. It works,
But money, there's money there. I don't have the money to.
RDS is not okay. You don't have $5 a month just to run your test. It's not that.
RDS expensive. Is the most expensive service AWS offers.
Yeah, but you don't use a huge RDS. You're just using one of their lower tier ones.
Yeah, I guess I'm just afraid.
So it's fun.
Yeah, you are, dude.
I had a one day one of my apps I left it running over the weekend trying to collect data for what we were doing, and I didn't think about it at the time. I didn't think about it well. I didn't think my thought through, and I ran it for the weekend, and I came back on a Monday and I looked at the bill and I was like a $300 bill.
Wow.
So I have reservations about AWS.
You're like damaged for life. You're like, I can't do that.
Post-traumatic stress.
Hold on, I'm getting a price right now for you. 0.01 an hour. So
you find out that price. But again, Eduardo, our favorite listener, Slacker, all that stuff, he suggested Dash for the text expanding stuff where you could use snippets and it has kind of a nice text expanding aspect. I use Dash for like offline documentation because I'm on the train and the Wi-Fi kind of spotty.
Oh, Dash, yeah, that is a good one. I used to use that when we have satellite where I live. We used to, so I had to use Dash for a lot of my like you're saying, because it was a pain to look stuff up. So that was.
You know what else I can't live without is what is this called again? And again, this I hate doing OS specific tools, but this is one of the ones I can't live without. Is Alfred, which is like an application launcher.
Yeah,
I have mine customized where I can go to particular repos or open up tickets with just a few Alfred shortcuts. It's like I even though a lot of the functionality that Alfred offers is now built into Mac OS, as far as like searching and all, I still use Alfred because back to your whole muscle memory and how you have things customized and configured. I still use that tool every day.
Yeah, agreed. Matt made a really nice plugin too called D&D, and it lets you turn off.
I use that one as well.
Yep. I like that because I'll forget. It's so heavenly when your messages are off. So you're like 3 hours later, you're like, oh shoot, But with D&D, you can just say 45 minutes and it turns it back on. It's very helpful.
I got to ask, Alfred, if you're using a tool that had the same name as you, how does that feel?
It's always odd in conversations.
You use Alfred and not me, the tool. No,
well, it's like now AI is a big thing. So inside of Slack, you see AI when people type it, it's AI, but it looks like AL. I'm like, what do you want? It's like, oh, geez, forget it. One thing I really liked a lot this past project was Google Draw. It's like a big whiteboard for remote workers where you can plan and really diagram out really amazing stuff.
What? Google Draw?
Yeah, so it might be called something else. Let me see what they officially call it. But my point is, if you create a Google, let me see when I do a new one. So Google.
What?
So my point, it's called Google Drawings, and what I think it's amazing. I think it's the most underestimated tool they have, because for remote teams, it becomes a whiteboard where everybody can be just throwing down notes and ideas. And I was actually diagramming whole projects with it because you can do all the UML charts and stuff. So.
Wow. So, and to expand on that, the whole Google Suite, as far as that collaboration piece goes, I mean, just today, we were brainstorming through solutions and risks associated to the solutions for one of our clients. And, that's exactly what we did. We opened up a Google Doc and everybody started typing.
Yeah.
And that whole Google Suite is so totally worth it to me from a business perspective.
Yep. It is amazing. And it is inspiring because they're so good at that stuff. You just like, wow, this is really amazing. How good they do it. I don't Evernote gets stuck syncing conflicts all over the place. Google never. I'm like, geez. So Google Draw, it's worth trying. I think if you want to use a whiteboard or do planning stuff, it's really nice.
I'll definitely have to give this a shot. This is one of the things I've been looking for, so we'll give this a go.
You know what, guys? I gotta start calming the show down here. We are coming up to the end of our hour, and it just flew by. And I don't even think we got into half the tools that we wanted to talk about. We spent the first half talking to Eric the tool.
Yeah. Can we all just agree on iTerm? Do you guys use iTerm?
iTerm.
Now, what about their memory leak thing that they had? They fixed it, but
really,
does that hurt your confidence in them at all?
What other choice is there? They built in one for Mac. What other choice would there be?
Yeah, iTerm, hands down.
Putty. I don't want to use Putty.
Putty? No, don't even. That's like, I guess the built-in Mac terminal now has tabs. I didn't realize that. That's when they had that whole tab API built in. Yeah, it's interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
And yet another reason why everybody should use Vim, because you SSH to a foreign machine, you won't have your ID out there. You can always hit Vim, VI.
Yep.
All right. So one of the things I should mention, though, that what we're trying to do for the show is to get a consistent panel. And one of our more consistent members, Matt Lance, has been inconsistent. So we decided to bring in somebody to help out. We're not looking to replace him, but, and of course, that guy's not available today. So the next show, you're going to hopefully see Matt Lance. But you're also going to see a new member who might be recording from his new home. I don't know, but TJ Miller, you guys might have seen him 6 Live on Twitter and around town. He was at LaraCon, guy with a bushy beard. So he'll be on as a regular going forward, and we'll try and get Matt back in the mix when I don't know what he's doing tonight.
He's getting some work done. He needs to get done. I will. So I'm okay with it.
Well, I blame you. Also.
Yes.
Come on, and we got Tony as well, right?
Cool.
Yeah. But the thing is, Alfred, if you're going to kick people off the show, I'm going to have to kick you off the show. Not how it works. Priority.
All right.
Well, let's call it here. We talked about a lot of really cool stuff. And one of the big things I want to highlight again, Wave PHP, Eric's conference next year.
That's right.
I really want to go. I'm going to start saving up my money. I hope to see a lot of the people that I saw at LaraCon there. We can, catch up and hang out again. It'd be fun.
Yeah.
Short of that, we will see you in 2 weeks. We promise to really try hard to be consistent.
Yeah, I think now that we've got this show out of the way, we'll get more consistent. I feel it. I'm confident.
Yeah, it's always like anxiety, like, oh crap, I got to do the show today, man. All right, anyway, no more bitching. Happiness, people. Let's see you all smile. All right. Well, we'll call it here. Thank you, everybody, for watching LaraChat Live, episode number 30. We didn't really have a milestone party about this one. Maybe next time. All right. Thank you all so much. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. I'm away next.